And this is Love Kills by Hank Harrison, read by Bradley Dahlberg. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you like this kind of content. This is the very first book that I decided to read from a beautiful woman that was bought for me. Chapter 3, Disguise and Dale Limit. I'm not a very physical person. I wouldn't be capable to stop an intruder without a gun. Kurt Cobain, August 1993. Friday, April 8th, 1994. My yoga instructor Bob Marlowe calls me at 11 a.m. It's my birthday. Or it's his birthday. I guess you heard. Heard what? Kurt was found dead in the greenhouse. They say he shot himself with a shotgun. Kurt who? You know, Courtney's old man. Wait, that's too bad. I began to terribly tremble uncontrollably. A man I never met. My disfected son-in-law was dead at 27. I knew he had been fighting with Courtney lately. I knew something was off the wall the minute I heard the report. Something darker, more sinister. I wanted to puke. Are you sure it was Kurt? Yeah, dude. They mentioned Courtney on the radio. Where did it happen? In the house on Lake Washington in Seattle. Yeah, that's the house. Wow. How do you feel? I hear the sadness in Bob's voice. He didn't like the Nirvana's music, but he understood it. I don't know, I answered. I'm angry, scared, lonely, sick, worried. All the same. Why are you so worried? I'm worried about Francis. Well, they said nobody could find Courtney or the baby. You mean they're missing? Yeah. A big finger came down from the dark cloud, pressed my panic button. A shock ripped throughout me. My typical male conditioning wouldn't let me cry out with anguish, so I stifled it. At least I could find a pillow to scream. I answered, Kurt. He said he didn't have a gun in one of his songs. He must have bought one, Bob spoke under his breath. Courtney told me she made me get rid of his guns. Yeah, well, everybody in the Northwest keeps an old blunderbuss in the closet. Besides, maybe she figured he was going to shoot her. Peels an inappropriate set of laughter on both sides of the phone. The other line rings. Thanks, Bob. The other phone rang again. It was Katrina. You heard, no doubt. Yeah, just by now Bob called me. What do you think? Oh, she finally did it. She's always said she was going to kill a rock star. According to Bob on the radio, it was suicide. Man, I'm not so sure. He was missing and she was in jail last week. She got out for holding a blank prescription pad. Okay, well, we'll talk when I get home. See you later. Yeah, okay. A migraine flared up later that night, muffled like an empty freight train, rattling in the distance. There was no boyhood tucking into this night. The pillow screaming worked up as well as the Valium. I guess I was to not be so upset if Courtney had married a software engineer, but unfortunately my son-in-law was one of the most important poets in the country. I assumed Courtney would be about worshipping him, but I guess not. I tried to zazen, I prayed, I dozed off. I was overreacting, but the next dawn came, and the panic-laced depression was still floating around. I found myself in the mourning for a son I never even met. Oh, I saw him smashing a guitar on stage, but I never got the guts to go backstage. I never met him. I figured that would come in the fullness of time. Fat chance. I've been mourning the writing eulogies most of my life. In the beatnik world, people drop like flies. It was a rare month that somebody of my acquaintance didn't die. A goodly chunk of my writings is about those who are about to die. The sadness part of it, would normally pass over in a week or so, but the entire world was not mourning for the death of the future king, or the sorrow was hanging around almost as heavy as when John Lennon was gunned down. Cobain became in a year's time the de facto president of the new wave. This gave him more power than an elect figure. All he had to do was get elected by writing a song every month or so. On New Year's Eve in 1993, during a particularly soulful rendition of Jesus Doesn't Want Me for a Sunbeam, I heard him utter the words, "It was nice to have the power," from the stage in Oakland. The only problem was the show wasn't coming from Oakland. It wasn't even New Year's Eve. MTV taped the show in a warehouse in Seattle and broadcast it if it were some kind of authentic gig. In the spite of its weakness, I picked something raw and surrealistic from that show. Kurt's stage comment about the power held true, but he only held the power when he was on stage. Off stage, he was castrated as Bob Barker's dog, male feminist to the last. His utters came from, as he called it, ejection of the tip grabber from the mosh pit. I didn't know what he meant at the time. I figured he was just toying with his newfound sense of leadership. Cobain was the power of existential. How could anyone see that he was playing with the power of life and death? He derived power from transcending time. He wasn't suicidal. He was in the state of ascension. Kurt seemed to sense that his power, like Janis Joplin's soul and Jim Morrison's charisma, came from the animal sensuality, his Elvis quoting. But when Kurt died, everybody knew that he was more than a rock star. His fans, caught in a whirlpool of his death, had no choice to grieve. But to grieve. Cobain wasn't just a simple rock star, but he was a blue-collar visionary. Like the voyeur in Jean Cousteau's Blood of the Poet, I was able to peer into Kurt's memorial and service broadcast live worldwide. Something seemed fishy in Seattle as my daughter spoke. I knew the inner secrets of the Cobain case, guarded by the gauntlet of family members, ex-spouses, in-laws, groupies, golfers, and the other players, each with a private agenda, yet I knew I had to write about Kurt, for some other reason, to soothe my sorrow. It wasn't easy, breaking through those barriers, forming alliances, even purposely alienating people to entice them out of their moldy corners. And so May Day came, 1994. I put in my journalistic clown suit and joined the parade. I decided to be completely out of touch, and people bugging me as much as Kurt. Kurt dying. Old potheads like me pride themselves in being hip to the scene. But it was patently obvious that I was out of it, especially when it came to Kurt and Courtney. The milieu of their music, their condition soon remedied. A number of online services featured Nirvana discussion groups and folders. The last time I checked, various fans were reading through Kurt's innovations with his Jagstang. Other fans trading lyrics to Heart-Shaped Box, a song influenced by Courtney since she collected heart-shaped candy boxes and doll parts since she was a child. The San Jose Mercury News and the articles raw old tidbits stood out. The official sources report the Cobain incident in Rome was not a suicide attempt. Oh, Courtney told everybody Kurt was suicidal. She made sure the suicide seed got planted over and over and over again. A few days were scrubbed. The version of the self-destructed storyline came across the UPI saying the incident in Rome was a suicide attempt. I knew it wasn't, because people don't usually commit suicide with date rape drugs. I asked myself who was rewriting these press releases. Months later, I discovered just who was spinning what. Janet Billing, a PR flick from New York, then attached to Kurt's management team, had been a chubby with Courtney ever since Babes at Toyland played at CBGB's back in the Chelsea days. She was pretty much a boiler planting everything Courtney said. When I heard Courtney was in the hospital a day before Kurt was found dead, I sensed the rumors and the internet had been there under her control since the Rome incident. I knew she was familiar with the book and recommended putting yourself in jail or the hospital or both, or establish an alibi. Doubts. Odd smells were leaking through the radon from under your house. Courtney seemed healthy in late 1993, but I was wrong there too. Rumors started following again. Excess of booze and pills were a common in the reports, but she was betting at least 2 other guys. This whole cascade of the media crap came reminding me of stuff Courtney said a decade earlier. One night over the table at a restaurant, she looked at me straight in the face and said, "I could poison you right now, and nobody would suspect me." You know that, don't you? The end of Chapter 3. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is Love Kills by Hank Harrison, read by Bradley Dahlberg.